Unveiling the Amazing Journey, How 7 Shocking Byzantine Secrets Forged a Transformative Empress. Emily Sinclair stepped into the dim sanctuary of her grandfather's old gallery, where shadows stretched like longing memories. The inscription on the door, faded yet resolute, whispered tales of artistry and labor long forgotten. Her heart raced as she surveyed the cracked windowpanes filtering sunlight into dust motes that danced through the air like phantoms of the past. In this small Indiana town, where gossip coursed like an unending tide and the local diner's chatter drowned out every subtlety, she harbored a treasure trove of untold narratives, a burden wrapped in the legacy of her artisan family. But now, with her grandfather gone, what remained felt less like a gift and more like an obligation, a crumbling relic steeped in debt and societal disdain. The hollow echoes of the gallery stifled her breath. Was she foolish to believe she could resurrect its former glory? The judgments of the townsfolk gnawed at her resolve, their whispers, just an artisan's daughter, felt like an anchor dragging her dreams into the depths of obscurity. As she brushed her fingers over the frayed edges of abandoned masterpieces, questions churned in her mind. Did she possess the strength to defend her family's honor against the looming shadows of class prejudice? Before she could drown in despair, fate intervened, introducing her to Oliver, the elderly historian whose world-weary face held the tales of Byzantine artists. They were more than just names, he had shared, his voice rich with warmth and wisdom. They were rebels, dreamers, creators. Each word softened the hard edges of her uncertainty, igniting a flicker of hope. She was determined to curate an exhibition that would showcase the talents of those forgotten, but reality soon snapped back, bringing along the specter of her grandfather's expectations. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she meticulously sorted through stacks of old canvases, she stumbled across a journal, inked with the trembling hand of an artist who had suffered for their craft. Each entry resonated deep within her, pain, despair, and a yearning for acknowledgement. Her pulse quickened. This was not just art, it was evidence of struggle, an account of existence swimming against the current of indifference. Her mission solidified, yet a churning anxiety coiled tightly in her stomach. Would the community ever embrace her vision, or would they see her efforts as a desperate grasp for relevance? With every passing moment, she feared she was risking not only her grandfather's legacy but her very self-worth. What if her exhibition became a mere spectacle, a target for ridicule from the very people she had endeavored to uplift? The anxiety that gripped her refused to release its hold. Emily stood at the precipice of something monumental but felt the weight of the past pressing against her chest. Her heart raced, and though her hands trembled, she pressed forward, driven by an unmanageable urge to honor those who had come before her. Standing in her gallery, surrounded by the remnants of forgotten dreams, she inhaled deeply, sensing the moment of reckoning. The veil of doubt, however, refused to lift. Could art truly reclaim not just her family's honor, but her own place in this society that often overlooked the stories of artisans? The shadows loomed larger, and whispers of the past seemed to mock her resolve as she braced for the conclusion, facing the audience that may either embrace her or tear her apart. Would her dreams ascend as a magnificent phoenix or crumble into dust? Every heartbeat pounded with the weight of uncertain destiny, leaving the gallery trembling in anticipation of what was yet to unfold. The air in the gallery thickened with tension as Emily pondered her desperate situation. Days turned into nights spent sketching and planning, and yet, each time she put pen to paper, self-doubt clawed its way to the surface, gnawing at her resolve. She knew that to restore this gallery, she must delve deeper into its history, but plunging into the past carried implications that rattled her core. The weight of being labeled just an artisan's daughter hung around her like a shroud, stifling the vibrant ideas that bubbled to the surface. Determined not to let the judgments of others define her, Emily turned to the journal she had unearthed. Its pages cradled stories of struggle and transcendence, an echo of her own unfulfilled dreams. Each word served as a lifeline, urging her to reclaim this narrative, the voices of those lost to time compelling her to rise. In every stroke of faded ink, she felt the pulse of artistry asserting itself. Those artists had fought against societal constraints just as she did now. But the question loomed, could she genuinely embody that rebellious spirit? One fateful afternoon, Emily decided to reach out to local artisans and aspiring artists, those who shared her vision of showcasing the beauty of craftsmanship often ignored by the masses. She crafted an invitation, a rallying call woven with threads of hope and solidarity. But as the words settled on the page, her hand wavered. Would they accept her? In a moment that felt both monumental and fragile, she pressed send. It was the first step in a new direction, yet a part of her quaked at the potential rejection. The following days were a cacophony of nervous energy and anticipation. Responses trickled in, some warm and encouraging, others chillingly indifferent. One email, however, stood out in a sea of uncertainty. It was from a young sculptor, eager to share her plight of being overlooked in a town swayed by conventional standards. This gesture of vulnerability struck a chord within Emily. She wasn't alone. Others felt the same pangs of calling and consequence, the burdens of creativity weighed down by external expectations. Empowered, Emily scheduled the first meeting at the gallery. The evening air hummed with potential as she arranged chairs amidst the dust-laden canvases, preparing for what felt like an intimate confession rather than a traditional meeting. She was not merely a keeper of her grandfather's legacy, she was carving a space for the unrecognized, breathing life into forgotten stories. As she set the scene, a surprising sense of clarity washed over her. She was no longer straddling the fence of self-doubt, she was embracing her role. Moments before the gathering commenced, Emily's eyes caught the flickering light of an old chandelier, its once vibrant prisms dulled but still intact. It felt like a metaphor for herself. She, too, had weathered storms of criticism and disappointment but remained steadfast in her pursuit of resuscitating beauty. Was this her moment of metamorphosis, a chance to embody the boldness of those artists chronicled in the journal? As she welcomed her guests in, Emily felt a sense of kinship blossom, much like the creators who had come before. Each conversation layered her emerging identity with a new conviction and a growing sense of purpose. The past was no longer a weight but rather a foundation upon which she could build her future with ambitious dreams unraveling before her. But even as they shared laughter, ideas, and aspirations, another worry loomed, the upcoming town meeting where her exhibition had to be defended. The audience would likely be a reflection of the judgments she had long feared. Could she hold her ground against their skepticism? Would her voice rise above the hum of the naysayers? With her heart pounding, Emily steeled herself, already mapping her strategy for the confrontation ahead. The time had come to face the scrutiny head-on, and she would not back down. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the gallery's dusty windows, Emily felt the weight of her responsibilities settle firmly on her shoulders. The meeting had brought her community together, a melange of talented individuals, each with stories as rich and poignant as her own. Yet, amid the connections forged and dreams shared, doubt bubbled beneath the surface, gnawing at her confidence. Tara, the sculptor, had encountered ignominy at the hands of critics who favored established norms. Hearing her share was both a balm and a sting, reminding Emily of the daunting challenge that lay ahead. And the stillness that followed the meeting's vibrance, Emily found solace in the solitude of the gallery. She lingered, touching the edges of the framed art pieces and recalling the stories bound within the strokes of the artist's hands. These pieces had declared war against mediocrity, and now, more than ever, they surrounded her, echoing their fierce determination. Yet she grappled with the very real fear that her own declaration was far from complete. The next morning, as Emily prepared for the town meeting, she felt the rush of adrenaline course through her veins. She meticulously crafted her speech, aiming to bridge the past with a vision for the future, yet every word felt like a clumsy step towards an uncharted terrain, each syllable resonating with the anxiety of injury, of being unworthy. Time slipped away, becoming both an ally and an adversary. She rifled through her notes, attempting to infuse courage into the speech that must encapsulate her identity. But this moment wasn't merely about the exhibition, it was an expression of her journey, a statement declaring that she owned her legacy, unapologetically and fiercely. As she walked into the meeting hall, heart thumping like a drum in her ears, Emily scanned the audience. Faces of skepticism, curiosity, and even indifference met her gaze. Gathering her resolve, she climbed the podium, acutely aware of the power nestled in her voice. This was her chance to blend her past experiences with her present ambitions. Yet as she began to speak, words evaded her. The audience became a collage of the doubters she had envisioned, their gazes sharp and judging, eagerly anticipating her falter. For a moment, a cascade of self-doubt threatened to topple her. Was she merely a shadow of expectations, or could she illuminate the path forward, just as the artists before her had done? Drawing a deep breath, Emily recalled Tara's vulnerable honesty and the collective energy they had cultivated in the gallery. In that instant, she shed the weight of expectation and instead embraced authenticity. She spoke not of art as a disjointed experience, but as a shared journey of exploration and resilience. The rhythm of her words transformed, they became heavy with truth and light with possibility. The audience shifted, some leaning in to listen more intently. Yet still loomed the fear of backlash, biting at her heels. As she concluded her presentation, adrenaline pulsing through her, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Hargrove, a prominent critic who had a reputation for his piercing remarks. Would he be the one to define her worth? Just as applause broke through the stillness, Emily noticed the crowd hovering between their cheer and Hargrove's expression, a mask of contemplation, perhaps intrigue, masked with skepticism. Her heart raced with uncertainty. Was she truly reaching him, or was silence the precursor to an impending criticism? The question echoed in her mind. As the meeting drew to a close, she felt a ripple of excitement laced with dread, a testament to the profound intricacies of growth. She had taken a leap, and the landing remained unknown. Could her voice withstand the scrutiny of her most formidable critic, or would it flutter away like the hopes of so many before her? With the stakes higher than ever, she realized that this confrontation was only the beginning of her journey, one where she must continuously negotiate between doubt and the conviction that had somehow begun to take root within her. What awaited her next? Emily's heart raced as she stepped off the podium, adrenaline surging through her veins. The applause felt like a distant echo, each clap a reminder of the stakes she had just confronted. Could her words extend beyond that moment and transform what lay ahead? She patrolled the periphery of the room, scanning faces, heightened awareness amplifying her sensitivity to the subtlest changes in demeanor. Hargrove stood out among the crowd, eyes narrowing as he scribbled notes onto the notepad resting on his knee. His presence loomed like a thundercloud, ominous yet electric with the potential for revelation. As she approached him, a wave of conviction washed over her, invigorating her steps. This wasn't merely about gaining his approval, it was about establishing her right to belong in a space she had long coveted. Mr. Hargrove, she began, her voice steadying as she approached him, I hope my presentation resonated with your insights on innovation in the arts. His keen gaze met hers, sharp as a blade. You spoke passionately, Miss Carter. But passion without precision risks becoming mere sentiment. What defines your work? What makes it indispensable? His words sliced through her, raw and exposing. Emily felt a familiar wave of doubt crash over her, but she inhaled deeply, recalling the artists whose narratives had fueled her spirit. Art is not just aesthetic, it is a lens through which we view our realities. My work aims to challenge those perspectives, to create dialogue rather than dictate perception. He regarded her, eyebrow raised, as if assessing the weight of her words against the scales of criticism. An ambitious claim. What experiences lend you the authority to take on that responsibility? Emily's thoughts raced. She needed clarity, needed to back her ambition with her own scars and triumphs. I've faced criticism, Mr. Hargrove. Moments of vulnerability and doubt marked my journey. I stood before the same audience today, a palpable fear underlining my desire to be an integral part of this artistic dialogue. What can artistry offer if not a raw reflection of our collective human experience? A bridge between worlds we seldom traverse. Hargrove remained silent, contemplating her. His inscrutable expression unsettled her, but she pressed on. I learned through every rejection, every challenge. My commitment to authenticity was born from a deep-seated understanding that growth often rises from discomfort. The crowd began to dissipate, and with it, Emily felt the pressure ease slightly, yet her connection with Hargrove felt paramount. His expression softened, and for the first time, a hint of respect flickered in his eyes. "Perhaps you do hold more than just passion, Miss Carter. But vision requires consistency and a willingness to confront pushback." "Then let me confront it, let me dive into dialogue and scrutiny," Emily urged, her resolve solidifying. "Art demands dialogue, and I want to lead that conversation, not just for me but for every artist compelled to shatter boundaries." Hargrove studied her intently. "Your fire is commendable. You will need it, as you're likely to encounter more than applause. Be prepared for the critics who won't merely question your vision but will test your foundation. It isn't merely about your message, it's about enduring the battle of public scrutiny." Questions gnawed at Emily as Hargrove's words sank in. Was she truly ready? The path she envisioned was fraught with potential adversaries and doubts that clung like shadows. Yet, there was a burgeoning awareness, a whisper of truth inside urging her forward. "Thank you, Mr. Hargrove," she replied, the weight of her voice carrying newfound strength. "I will embrace that challenge." As he departed, a thrill rushed through her. This unexpected encounter had unveiled layers of her ambitions, but also exposed areas of vulnerability needing resolution. She realized she was standing at the precipice of her own growth, not just as an artist but as a person willing to confront her fears. Determined alone in the fading light of the hall, Emily extracted her phone. It was time to act. She had to confront previous collaborators and critics, begin a new dialogue, and document her journey moving forward. There was no retreat, only progression, yet, amid this resolve, a voice inside urged caution. Was she prepared for the emotional toll that real confrontation would be? As the night unfolded, Emily knew another encounter awaited, one that would push her defined boundaries even further. Would she possess the resolve to forge a new identity amid turbulence? Emily stood in front of her half-empty apartment, the remnants of a chaotic week strewn across the living room, empty coffee cups, hastily stacked notebooks, and art supplies scattered across the floor. She felt a twinge of discomfort as she surveyed the disarray, a tangible representation of her mind cluttered with thoughts about her future. Her presentation had sparked a tenuous flame, yet now uncertainty flickered in its stead. After her encounter with Mr. Hargrove, something within her had shifted. She no longer possessed merely the desire to create, she felt the weight of ambition pressing heavily against her chest. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. What if she failed? More importantly, what if she didn't? The quiet of her apartment enveloped her, amplifying her internal struggle. Should she pursue her vision despite the potential for failure or retreat to the safety of obscurity? Memories of past rejections clawed at her resolve. They loomed like specters, threatening to ensnare her in a cycle of doubt. But she had made a promise to herself, to Hargrove, and to every artist whose voice had been muffled by dismissal. Taking a deep breath, Emily opened her laptop to confront her demons. She had a list of names, collaborators and critics whom she had previously avoided. They were the voices that echoed in the corners of her mind, and she recognized that confronting them would be essential for her growth. With shaking fingers, she pulled up a blank document and began to type, laying out her intentions. "I am reaching out to invite a dialogue," she wrote. "From past experiences together, I believe there is value in revisiting what we previously discussed." The cursor blinked mockingly at her, a reminder of both her uncertainty and potential. She hesitated before adding specific names, contemplating how each individual might respond. Would they sneer, nod in disapproval, or inspire her to push forward? Beneath her uncertainty lay a tangible tension, the fierce desire to assert her presence in the creative world, balanced against the fear of how her outreach might be received. Revisiting memories of past collaborations, Emily felt her resolve fracture slightly. She recalled the sharp criticisms delivered in the sanctity of critique circles, the disdainful glances from peers who believed art should conform to established norms. It stung, but she realized those experiences fortified her determination. They transformed her pain into the drive to represent perspectives often overlooked, perspectives that had the power to challenge the status quo. Emily set her jaw, and a flicker of defiance ignited within her. It was time for her voice to echo loudly, not just on stage but in the painful and exhilarating conversations that lay ahead. She designated each email with care, emphasizing the need for a fresh perspective, a chance to rekindle collaboration built on honesty, exploration, and growth. As she clicked send on the final email, a sudden wave of exhilaration washed over her, interlaced with creeping anxiety. What would their responses reveal? This new step felt monumental. She was not merely crafting a narrative in her artwork, but inviting others to engage with and reshape her vision. Yet amidst her newfound determination, doubt flickered once again like a match struggling to catch fire. What if they rejected her outreach? What if they dismissed her efforts as naive? For a moment, she allowed herself to dwell in the uncertainty, and a question surfaced: was she ready to embrace the backlash that might follow? Emily stood by the window, gazing out at the city lights. The nightlife pulsed with energy, a stark contrast to her inner turmoil. She considered Hargrove's words: the challenges were not merely external, they would also arise from within. Would she possess the resilience to reforge her identity in the face of uncertainty? As the day faded into night, Emily reflected on the crossroads ahead. She sensed that somewhere in the fog of doubt, clarity awaited her. But would it emerge from her own efforts to engage, to provoke thought, or from the responses of those she dared to ask for connection? With a deep breath, she turned back to her laptop, her heart pounding in anticipation. The journey she had just embarked upon felt as crucial as any artistic endeavor. Emily prepared herself for the inevitable pushback. This was only the beginning. A notification pinged on her phone, distracting her momentarily from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and her heart skipped. Hargrove had responded. As she opened the message, the weight of what she had just set in motion enveloped her, propelling her further into the depths of her journey. Would his words embolden her growth, or would they shatter the fragile confidence she had finally begun to cultivate? As Emily opened Mr. Hargrove's message, her heart raced. The anticipation felt electric, a counterpoint to the pulsing anxiety that had consumed her the last few days. His concise, formal tone both calmed and unnerved her. Dear Emily, thank you for reaching out. I would be delighted to explore the possibilities of collaboration and dialogue. His words, a blend of encouragement and professionalism, ignited the flame of hope that she desperately craved. She chuckled softly at the notion that this respected figure believed in her vision, even if only a little. Doubts which had previously weighed heavily upon her began to ebb, making room for a burgeoning belief in her own capability. Still, anxiety loomed like dark clouds threatening a storm. What if her aspirations were grander than her execution? She closed the laptop gently, as though the device held the key to her new reality which demanded her next step. That evening, surrounded by the remnants of her chaotic week, Emily meticulously laid out her plans. The foundations of reaching out had been established, but she knew action must accompany her words. Time to step outside her cozy fortress of solitude, the very cocoon that had suffocated her aspirations for so long. The following day, she meticulously prepared for several meetings, armed with fresh sketches and notes summarizing her ideas. Each piece of work represented a bridge from her past struggles toward her future ambitions. An iced coffee fueled her energy as she headed to a local art gallery where one of her former collaborators had a show. The gallery bustled with creatives, their laughter and animated conversations creating an enticing buzz. As she stepped through the threshold, she felt an electrifying mix of trepidation and excitement. What would it feel like to face those once unapproachable peers? Could she invite them to witness her evolution instead of dwelling on past encounters? Clenching her sketchbook tightly, she moved deeper into the gallery, scanning the crowd, looking for familiar faces. Then she spotted Jamie, a fellow artist who had once critiqued her work rather severely. Jamie stood by a large painting, her effervescent energy captivating the attention of an adoring crowd. Emily paused, hidden behind a column, wrestling with the fear that clawed at her resolve. Her instincts screamed for retreat, whispering that attempts for connection may lead to more harsh rebukes, but Emily was not that same nervous artist anymore. She hadn't sent those emails simply to linger on the sidelines. With a newfound determination, she stepped forward, overcoming the inertia that had long threatened to hold her back. Drawing in breath, she approached Jamie, a smile plastered across her face, hiding the tempest brewing within. "Hey, Jamie," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I loved your latest piece." A flicker of surprise crossed Jamie's eyes, quickly replaced by her signature grin. "Emily. It's been a while." "Thank you." Their exchanged pleasantries felt like a tentative dance, each movement purposefully measured. Emily's mind raced, questioning how this interaction might bridge the gap of their past. Should she hint at her aspirations, invite Jamie into her newfound journey? Before she lost her nerve, Emily glanced down at her sketches peeking from the corner of her bag and found her voice again. "I've been working on something exploring how our experiences shape our narratives. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it." Jamie's features softened, genuine curiosity lighting her eyes. "I'd be interested in seeing that. Let us talk." A wave of accomplishment surged through Emily, battling the remnants of past doubts. She had deliberately stepped into the chaotic world of artist interactions. Yet beneath this exhilaration lingered the heavy question of what it meant to face the criticism that might come next. The interactions that followed with Jamie and others opened cracks in her walls, yet they also exposed her vulnerabilities. She realized those vulnerabilities were not weaknesses but rather channels for the authenticity she sought to cultivate. After several more conversations, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues through the gallery. Emily stood in a corner, reflecting on her growth, but ambivalence nibbled at her resolve. Would opening herself up to the scrutiny of her peers bring invaluable insights, or would it leave her feeling raw, exposed to the judgment she had so long avoided? As she left the gallery, the cacophony of voices faded, but the weight of potential change settled heavily on her shoulders. Tomorrow awaited her with uncertainty, more dialogues, more expectations, and the ambition to take her art to a realm she could scarcely imagine. What revelations awaited her as she plunged deeper into this world of artistic discourse? Would she discover the strength to voice her truths, or would she falter against each encounter that challenged her spirit? The daylight seeped through Emily's curtains, illuminating the sketches scattered across her desk. Each line and curve felt like a fragment of her aspirations, each detail holding the promise of transformation. Awaking with a mixture of excitement and anxiety, she pushed aside the lingering doubts still circling her mind like gnats, determined to dissect them this time rather than let them fester in the shadows. Today was not just any day, it was a culmination of her recent confrontations with her fears. She replayed her conversations from the gallery in her mind, the warmth in Jamie's smile, the genuine interest in her thoughts. Those interactions barely scratched the surface, yet they prompted a newfound commitment to showcase her art authentically. Clutching a cup of coffee, she rifled through her notes, reflecting on the themes she had explored. Each concept was more than a mere artistic idea, it was a glimpse into her own evolution. As the day unfolded, Emily found herself at a local cafe, meeting Mr. Hargrove for their first conversation about collaboration. Her heart raced, a remnant from last night's exhilaration mixed with new dams of fear. What if he found her ideas lacking? What if his professional gaze stripped away the layers of passion she had wrapped around her sketches? She inhaled deeply, willing herself to view this meeting as a dialogue rather than a trial. Upon entering, she spotted Mr. Hargrove at a corner table, absorbed in his notes. Recognizing his intensity flared the competitive side within her, yet the unsettling anxiety shifted her determination into hyperdrive. She approached, a calm facade plastered over her inner storm. "Mr. Hargrove, thank you for agreeing to meet," she began, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I'm excited to share my ideas with you." His gaze lifted, revealing a mix of curiosity and professionalism. "Emily, it's a pleasure. Your email intrigued me, I'm eager to see what you've developed." As the conversation blossomed, Emily shared her sketches, articulating her vision with a clarity she hadn't thought possible. Each description carved through her initial apprehension, illuminating the depth of her thoughts. Mr. Hargrove leaned back, nodding affirmatively, offering insights but also raising critical questions that pushed her even further into her own canvas. "What's the underlying message you're hoping to convey with your work?" he asked, eyes keen and evaluating. This hadn't crossed her mind amidst the rush of preparing for their discussion. She had overlooked the emotional core behind her art. Catching her breath, Emily paused, the weight of his question settling deep within. She now understood her art wasn't just a collection of experiences but rather her resolve to turn vulnerability into empowerment. "I want to explore how vulnerability can transform," she suddenly realized, her voice gaining strength. "How it can forge connections with others, create empathy." As she spoke, she felt the layers of her self-doubt peel away, exposing a raw, burgeoning confidence that surged with every word. Mr. Hargrove sat captivated, a hint of approval in his expression. "That's a compelling insight, Emily," he replied, his voice resonating with encouragement. "Harnessing those personal experiences is where your art will flourish." With every exchange, Emily felt a shift within her. This wasn't just another critique, it was the start of an alliance, an opportunity to ascend from uncertainty to authentic expression. As they continued to discuss possibilities and collaborative avenues, she pondered not just on today but on the trajectory that lay ahead. The thought of embracing rather than evading judgment ignited a fire inside her, yet, as the meeting concluded, Emily sensed lurking uncertainties. Was she truly prepared for the vulnerability that would inevitably accompany placing her work, her thoughts, under scrutiny? How would she respond to the critiques that might come from this new venture? With a final handshake, they parted ways, but the exhilaration of potential shifts collided with the unease of uncharted territories. She stepped onto the street, the weight of possibilities laden upon her shoulders, uncertainty closing in once more. What would it mean to surrender completely to the feedback of her peers, to exist in a community where her vulnerabilities could become beacons of strength? The questions hung in the air like tendrils of fog, whispering promises of both challenge and opportunity. Determined to explore the next step in her journey, Emily took a deep breath, ready to plunge into the storm of artistic critique and connection. What awaited her in this raw realm of vulnerability and creativity? Would she embrace the scrutiny or unravel beneath it? The next morning, Emily woke to the cacophony of city sounds filtering through her window. The sun peeked through the drapes, and she rolled out of bed, feeling a nervous energy bubbling within her. After their discussion at the cafe, a sense of urgency had implanted itself deep in her psyche. Today, she resolved, would mark the beginning of her exploration into the world of constructive criticism. She arrived at the studio, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. The air buzzed with creativity, and artists were lost in their projects, some passionately discussing ideas, others fully immersed in their art. This charged atmosphere invigorated her. She found a corner space, setting her belongings down, determined to dive headfirst into her work. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, she spread her sketches around her, like a curator displaying works for an exhibit. Each piece represented a fragment of her journey, yet she felt their execution lacked the depth she hoped to convey. It struck her then that real growth came not only from creating but from opening herself up to the harsh balance of critique. However, how would she start? Who would she approach for feedback? The thought of vulnerability danced anxiously in her mind. She tapped her fingers against the sketchbook, waiting for inspiration. Then, a voice broke through her contemplation. "Emily." Jamie appeared, his smile warm yet curious. "Are you up for some artist exchanges today? A group is gathering later to discuss our works." His invitation felt both promising and threatening. This could be precisely the opportunity she needed to engage with critics and fellow artists who shared her struggles. As he spoke about the upcoming critique session, her heart raced at the uncertainty of being assessed, but her determination quelled her instincts to flee. She agreed, joining Jamie and a small circle of artists later that evening. They gathered in a cozy, studio-lit room, walls adorned with vibrant canvases and rough sketches. A palpable hum filled the air, mingling excitement with apprehension. She could feel tension swirl around the room as everyone shared pieces of their own work. When Emily's turn arrived, she felt all eyes on her, each stare dissecting her existence. She presented her sketches, her throat dry as she spoke, but she reminded herself of their suffocating responsibility. Her art was her power. As she articulated her themes of vulnerability and connection, she felt her words infusing the pieces with new life, but doubt curled its fingers around her stomach as criticism flew into the air like arrows. Empathy is a powerful theme, one artist commented, but how do you visually express the tension between vulnerability and strength? I wonder if the colors capture that struggle effectively. Invitations for discussion soon multiplied, mingling encouragement with suggestions. It felt overwhelming yet strangely liberating. Here she was, standing on the precipice, teetering between acceptance and rejection. As she absorbed the feedback, Emily realized the critiques weren't attacks, each suggestion contained glimmers of truth. She witnessed the diverse perspectives coalescing around her work. A revelation stirred within her: criticism was not meant to extinguish her voice but rather to strengthen it. So much of her power lay in the relationships formed through shared vulnerability. This realization illuminated a path forward. After the session concluded, she wandered home, her mind alight with ideas and the unfiltered feedback swirling like a kaleidoscope inside her head. But beneath that excitement simmered a familiar undercurrent of self-doubt. How would she channel this feedback into her work? Could she transform these external judgments into a tool for self-discovery rather than a weapon for self-criticism? With each step, her heart raced more fervently, as she contemplated her motivations and the creative metamorphosis that awaited her. Would this path ultimately lead to the strength she sought? She halted to take a deep breath, surrendering to the uncertainty of her journey, a pivotal moment hanging in the balance. What transformation awaited her as she unearthed the depths of her artistic identity? The tender tension of her exploration had only just begun to unravel. Emily awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose, the previous night's critique echoing in her mind like the relentless city sounds outside. The feedback had sparked a flicker of hope within her, but alongside it rolled a tide of uncertainty. She understood the importance of integrating critiques into her work, but the question loomed: how could she pivot her creations in a way that honored her vision while incorporating the feedback? Before she left for the studio, she made a mental list. Analyze the feedback, identify common threads, and breathe life into her sketches with this newfound perspective. It felt daunting but liberating, each step a small commitment towards self-growth. Upon her arrival at the studio, she found her spot again, now feeling a palpable difference in her surroundings. It was hers to explore, hers to transform. Each sketch scattered around her was a territory she would map anew. Seated cross-legged, she picked up a pencil, letting the nib trail across the surface of the page as ideas began to form. The initial strokes felt hesitant, but as the images unfolded under her hand, confidence surged. The canvases absorbed her attention, and she began to see her sketches not as flawed creations but as stepping stones. By embracing the critiques she had received, she could dive deeper into the nuances of vulnerability, the contrast between fragility and strength. With each revision, she became increasingly aware of a hidden vigor within her, an unquenchable desire for self-expression and an eagerness to explore emotional depth through color and texture. Yet, even as she dove deeper into her reinterpretations, echoes of doubt crept in. Was she straying too far from her original intent? Was she molding her art to appease others instead of authentically enhancing her voice? It was a delicate dance, and she found herself battling the very instincts that had compelled her to explore vulnerability. During the week, Emily engaged in conversations with other artists, seeking their perspectives not just on her work, but about their journeys. She learned that every artist faced moments of uncertainty, that doubt was a common thread in the fabric of creativity. Each story she heard fortified her resolution to wrestle with her own insecurities and transform them into sources of strength. Yet, one artist's story captivated her most: a sailor who had painted her way through storms both literal and metaphorical. "What if your art could weather your doubts?" she said, her voice steady. "What if your voice became your anchor?" It was a pivotal moment for Emily, the image of a ship braving wild seas resonating deeply within her. Determined to embody this newfound understanding, she labored over her sketches, infusing them with a blend of resilience and vulnerability. Each brushstroke became an act of defiance against her self-doubt. The colors began to dance vibrantly upon the canvas, capturing her evolving journey with rich emotional depths that she had not tapped into before. But just as she was building momentum, the familiar pull of fear tightened around her chest. threatening to drown her in uncertainty. Would her work resonate with others? What if she showcased these pieces and found the feedback harsh or dismissive? As she stepped back to examine her evolving collection, Emily was caught in a moment of self-reflection. Was she willing to risk herself and her art for the chance to expose her true voice to the world? The answers lingered on the edges of her consciousness, begging her to confront the ultimate question: could she bear the weight of her own truth? Realizing the next step would require both bravery and vulnerability, she took a deep breath and prepared to confront her fears, ready to delve deeper. Later that day, while sketching ideas for her next work, a notification popped up on her phone, a call for submissions for a local art showcase. Uncertainty pressed down like an anchor. Would this be her moment of reckoning with both herself and the world? Emily hesitated, the cursor blinking a stark reminder that sometimes, the path of self-discovery hides behind the boldness of submission. Would she dare to seize the opportunity or shy away from the challenge awaiting her? Emily sat in her studio surrounded by half-finished canvases, colors swirling and blending on the palette before her. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the dust that floated lazily in the warm light, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a surge of clarity. She had transformed her doubts into motivation, turning every brush stroke into a declaration of who she was, who she wanted to be. The call for submissions loomed large in her mind. It was more than just a showcase, it could be the catalyst for her long-desired recognition and an opportunity to honor her grandfather's legacy. Deep breaths steadied her resolve as she revisited the narrative residing in her art, the journey of vulnerability, the courage to confront societal norms, and the silent voices of artisans that desperately needed to be heard. Fueled by a blend of excitement and apprehension, Emily opened her sketchbook and outlined her submission piece that would represent everything she had learned. She began integrating elements from the initial pieces that had once felt deficient, layering them with newfound depth and emotion. Each decision became a triumph, a testament to her resilience. No longer merely an artisan's daughter, she embodied an artist ready to conquer. The day of submission arrived, carrying the weight of her anticipation like a promise just within reach. Standing before her easel, brow furrowed in concentration, she put finishing touches on the final piece, a vibrant canvas bursting with colors and raw emotion, each hue narrating a different chapter of her story. As she stepped into the gallery later that afternoon, Emily felt the gravity of her journey weighing behind her, yet above her hovered a spirit of triumph. The gallery was alive, artists mingled, laughter echoed, and the air crackled with shared passion. It was here she could finally emerge fully, unshackled from fear. In conversations with other artists, she expressed her aspirations and listened intently to their stories, each one a thread in the fabric of creativity. This collective understanding nourished her spirit, reminding her she was never alone. They were resilient souls, navigating their paths through struggles and uncertainties, much like her own. As her turn approached, every heartbeat resounded in her chest, drowning out the surrounding chatter. She stepped to the front and presented her work, framing it as a tapestry of vulnerability and strength. Art, she declared, is a connective thread between us all. It should unearth truths that might otherwise remain hidden. The room fell into a soft hush, her words weaving a spell that captured attention. When the applause arrived, it was like a tide of warmth washing over her. Even Mr. Hargrove's nod of approval glimmered with acknowledgement. It was not merely validation, it was a heartfelt recognition of her evolution. As the night unfolded, accolades and constructive feedback flowed like lifeblood, revitalizing her spirit. The interplay between the critiques and compliments shaped her understanding of her work and herself. The artist she had been was now transformed into one who not only welcomed critique but thrived in utilizing it. The showcase marked not an end but a beginning. She felt the barriers of fear and self-doubt crumbling around her, replaced by a solid confidence and sense of belonging. Critics would arise, but she was no longer just an artisan's daughter. She had solidified her identity as a passionate creator, proven, resilient, and prepared for whatever lay ahead. In the ensuing days, she reflected deeply. A culmination of experiences now shaped her artistic voice with authenticity, no longer an echo of other people's judgments but a rich, resonant sound of her truth. With the submission behind her, a sense of achievement permeated her being. Actualized ambitions shimmered in the periphery of her vision, calling her forward into a future she would forge on her own terms. And as she embraced her evolving identity, the gallery would forever serve as a testament to the transformative power of resilience and self-discovery. This was her moment, the time to celebrate not just her art but the artist she was destined to become. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.